We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people. Because today, we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
Well, greetings and welcome, friends and fellow citizens, to the We the People Convention News and Opinion radio show and podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. I'm the host of this radio program and podcast. I'm also the president of the We the People Convention. And this radio show and podcast is brought to you through the generous donations of the people who give to the We the People Convention. You can do so if you'd like by going to wethepeopleconvention.org, and we'd appreciate it if you'd do so. The radio network is in Ohio, 5 radio stations throughout Ohio every Saturday morning from 7:30 a.m. until 9 a.m. And if you go to wethepeopleconvention.org, the website, you can click on the yellow button and you will see the radio station map and the times of each station. And you can find the links as well where you can click to listen, not just over the air on the radio, but on your phone or computer, iPad or laptop. You can listen over iHeart or whatever their streaming service is. For the rest of you who are not listening on the radio network, you're watching the podcast on the wethepeopleconvention.org website. Players right there on the front page. It's posted every Friday around noon. And then it's also available on things like YouTube at We the People Convention. And you can also listen to it or watch the TV broadcast on your TV at if you have Roku TV or Amazon Fire TV. The instructions are right there at wethepeopleconvention.org for you to get the programming that way. Most of all, we ask that you, if you watch the show, you like the show, that you please share it with others, because our goal is to really get information in your hands that you just quite simply won't get anywhere else. And I think if you are new to this show, if you're just tuning in, if you just stumbled across us on the radio dial or came up on your YouTube searches or suggestions, I think you're going to find that this is a very unique show. Our focus is to protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, and to defend our Constitution and our American way of life. And that's what the show's about, and that's the stories that we cover about. And it's really kind of a Radio Free Europe type show for those people who are in the Tea Party liberty movement, who have been fighting to restore our nation since 2010. And, the fight now is harsher and tougher than it's ever been. This election we're currently facing certainly has the most ramifications of any election since probably the Civil War. And I know you know that, and I know that you're concerned, but I think I'm going to be able to, put aside some of your concerns and help you today, and then give you some things to do. That's one of the things you'll know about this show. It is not just about talk, it is about action. Every show, I tell you what you can do, what you personally can do that will actually make a difference in your life and to really help our country and your fellow citizens. So we're going to get right after it right now because it's important. So last week, I talked to you guys about a story, an article that I wrote that was called, why mail-in ballots will not decide this election, and why we will not have to wait until weeks after the election to find out who won, because that's what the media is scaring you about. I'm talking to you guys. I just spoke in Newark, Ohio, to a great group of patriots. Many of them who listened to the radio show came down to see me. I was there Wednesday night in Newark, and thanks to them for that great meeting. And people were worried. People were scared. Don't be worried. Don't be scared. Go to wethepeopleconvention.org, click on articles, and under the articles, select the article that says why mail-in voting will not decide this election. And I will explain to you in detail why we're going to win this election, why we're going to win Ohio, and why what you're hearing is nothing but propaganda. Okay, and it has to do with several things, like the mail-in voting is only done in 10 states. And again, difference. Mail-in voting means they just mail a ballot to everyone in their state that they have on their registration rolls for voting, and then those people can mail them back in. That's different than absentee voting, okay, where you have to request a ballot. They have to make sure you're registered. They have to make sure that you are who you are. Then they send you a ballot. Then you mail in your ballot, and you have to have your signature confirmed and all that kind of stuff. So here's the bottom line. Several important things. Number one, the states that do mail-in balloting, there's only 10 of them. Trump lost 8 of them. The 2 that Trump did won, Arizona and Utah, he's going to win again. And so the mail-in voting won't matter. It's not going to matter. Number 2, the number of states that had time to after the election to count the ballots, of those states, most of them weren't even close. Trump either won them or lost them big. And the only way you can cheat is if it's a close election. So the 2 states where there was going to be counting of ballots after the election were Michigan and Pennsylvania. Trump won both very narrowly. But Pennsylvania only extended their voting, their ability to count votes after the election by 3 days until Friday. And then just this week, and I'll talk about this later in the show, the Supreme Court ruled, or a court ruled, that Michigan can't wait for 2 weeks for their ballots to arrive. They have to arrive on election night. So that's out of the question. So the bottom line is, you're not going to have to wait for weeks to get, to find out who won. All right. You're just not going to have to. Now, the most important part of this story talked about why it is more likely that Trump will win instead of lose. And I gave these important statistics. Okay. So let me just run down them real quick so you understand. Trump Trump won the election in 2016, but he lost the popular vote 65 million to 62 million, about 3 million votes. This year, Trump is gaining votes in all kinds of areas. For instance, in 2016, he only got 77% of Republicans to vote for him. This year, it's 96. That's 10 million votes, which is really a swing of 20 million votes. He's getting 9% more evangelical votes. He's getting he had 28% of the Hispanic vote. He's going to get like 35% this year. That's like 8.8 more million votes. He's getting more of the Catholic vote. In 2016, he had 45% of the Catholics. This year, he has 53% of the Catholics. That's another 12.4 million vote swing. He's getting more of the Jewish vote. He's getting more of the black vote. He only got 8% of the black vote in 16. They're projecting he's going to get between 15 and 20% this year. That's another like 6.8 million vote swing. Bottom line is, based on the polling, not these polls that tell you Joe Biden is winning by 15%, based on the polling of these demographic groups, there is a 46 million vote swing to Donald Trump. 46 million. That's a landslide. If he gets any one of these, and he's going to get several of them, the polling is correct. He's going to get more black vote. Matter of fact, I just saw a poll where Muslims, 61% of Muslims in the United States support Trump. That's a 2 million vote block. Trump is going to have a landslide, and he's winning in Ohio. You people who think he's not winning in Ohio, he's winning by like 12%. And I'm going to explain to you why here in just a second. But see, there's real worries for the Democrats here, because the whole theory with all this early voting was that, the left is going to cheat, which I just showed you how they can't cheat because the states aren't close and there's not enough mail-in voting going on, and that they're going to win the absentee voting, but those votes won't be counted until after the election. Well, guess what? It isn't working out that way, folks. As a matter of fact, it's working out in a very different way. And what's happening is that these guys are, the early voting is showing that the Republicans are doing better than the Democrats. It's just blowing away. In Michigan, with 25% of the total vote in compared to 2016, Republicans have a slim advantage heading into Election Day. Michigan Republicans have an early lead in early voting. That's never happened before. In Texas, Republicans shattered early voting expectation, and it appears a blue Texas is gone. In Texas, the Republicans shattered all previous years accounting with 50.6% of the total early vote versus 41% for Democrats. The Democrats are supposed to win the early vote. They're losing the early vote. I talked about Michigan, before, and then in Pennsylvania. What's happening is the voter registration is just going completely towards the Republicans in key states. In Florida, 195,000 Republicans have registered since the March primary compared to 98,000 Democrats. In Pennsylvania, Republicans have added 135,000 voters from the primary in June through September compared to 58,000 of Democrats. That's like a 70,000 vote difference. He only won Pennsylvania by like 40,000 votes or 20,000 votes or something. Republicans in North Carolina have added 84,000 votes compared to 38,000 for Democrats. In Arizona, they're adding more votes than they ever have before in early voting. So what's happening is not what the Democrats expected. And they're panicked, and they should be. Because whatever the polls are telling you, whatever the media is telling you, folks, it's propaganda. It's intended to make you think something is true that's not true. And you go check those numbers I gave you. You do your own research about evangelical vote being up for Trump, Republican vote being up for Trump, all those things. Just take a look at it. Now, here's the real problem we're facing. Because of this, what I just talked to you about the early voting, I have been doing polling in Ohio, and yes, that's why I can tell you Trump is winning and going to win big. He won by 8% in 16. He's going to probably win by 12% this time. That's why you're not hearing a bunch of Trump TV commercials. It's absolutely amazing to me that people who I know who are very bright, who are leaders in our movement around the state and around the country are scared to death. There's people calling me and saying, I heard Joe Biden's winning Ohio. There was a story in Breitbart News this week saying Biden's winning Ohio. If Biden were winning Ohio, do you think Donald Trump wouldn't be here every other day like it was in 2016? Have you seen Donald Trump in Ohio? No, you haven't. Why not? Because he's winning by 12%. Okay? Use your own eyes. Use your own ears. We're going to talk about the Trump train road rallies later. Look at all these people that are out doing rallies for Trump. You seen the Biden rallies? No, you haven't seen the Biden rallies. There are no Biden rallies. This is crazy. But that doesn't mean we don't have to work hard to get out our vote. So here's what's going on in the polling that you need to know. Literally, half of us have already voted. And I warned you about that 2 weeks ago. And there's only 2 more radio shows between now and the election, right? And so half of the people have voted. And I've got on the screen, if you're watching the podcast, that a poll from one of the counties, and it's pretty consistent. But here's the other number. 50% have already voted, and I'm seeing that as much as 30% of everyone else is going to vote before the election. Before the election. That means that on election day, it's going to be like 25 or 20% of the people are going to vote on election day. That's never been done before. Now, the good news there is it's going to be a walk in the park to go through the voting on election day because there's going to be 20% of the people voting. Okay? So that's going to work out really, really well. But that means we've got some problems that we have to solve. So here are our priorities. These are your marching orders for now, from now to the election. Number 1, because so many people are voting by absentee, it's critical that we continue to do our NRA absentee chase, and that all candidates do absentee chase. And for those of you who are not political people, absentee chase, all of you can go to your Board of Elections website, and you can actually download a database of everyone in your county who's either voted in person or sent in an absentee ballot and had one mailed back to them. And even the people who've mailed them back, who've already voted, you can see that list. And the reason for that is that candidates will do robocalls, or they will mail a postcard, or they'll actually have volunteers calling people and saying, we'd like to ask for your vote. We know you got an absentee ballot. We'd like to ask for your vote. That's called absentee chase. Obviously, that's critical this year. And we're doing that through the NRA, and our candidates are doing that. But then the next thing is, I just told you about 25 to 30% of people are going to vote at the Board of Elections, before the election. And so we need to go to the boards of elections with Slate Cards. And I talked to you last week about that. I'm going to tell you in a minute about how to get Slate Cards. I need you to go to your county Board of Elections with a Trump sign and print out your Slate card. I'm going to tell you how to do that in a second, okay? And say, anybody need a Trump Slate card? So we can get these Trump voters to vote down ticket. That's the most critical thing we have to do in the next 2 weeks. And remember, starting this Saturday, the polls are open on Saturday. So it's Monday through Friday from like 8 till 6, and then now on Saturdays going towards the election. So we've got to be there to say, hey, support Trump and vote for these people down ticket. The third thing is really worrying me, and it's that we must turn out our vote on Election Day, because 80% of the people who vote on Election Day are our voters. The Dems are already voting absentee. They're afraid of COVID. They're not going to come to the polls. So every vote we turn out on Election Day is one in Trump's category and our down ticket people. Okay? So this is really important, and we're going to do a thing that's called ballot. It's called poll flushing. And most of you don't know this, but throughout your lifetime, on Election Day, at every polling location, the person who's in charge of that polling location posts on the door a list of everyone who's voted so far that morning. And candidates and campaigns will go in and they'll have an iPad or something, and they'll mark off all the people who voted so they can then start calling the people who haven't voted yet. So we're working with the Trump campaign and whoever we can at the Republican Party to try to help with that, okay? But the key is, if you know who hasn't voted yet, you got to get them out. So on Election Day, I'm going to be asking you guys to do some things. Now, I want to show you something that's from Fairfield County, because it's to tell you how important it is to get out our vote. So here's Fairfield County. It's a red rural county. In 2016, they had 100,000 registered voters. And about 74%, the actual votes in 16 were 74,225 people voted. So they had 100,000 registered, about 74,000 voted, and of those, about 75% voted for Trump. Okay? Now that still means 25,000 registered voters didn't vote. But here's what's happened. I had asked you to help us register people to vote all summer long, and we did, as I told you in previous shows. You know, in 2016, we had 7.2 million Ohioans registered to vote. Now we have 8 million. And in 2016, 5.6 million voted, and we think we're going to have at least 6 million and maybe 6.5 million. So this is a big deal, okay? But here's what happened in Fairfield County. They now have 109,000 registered voters. So at the same 74% turnout, there's going to be 80,800 votes in Fairfield County, which is a gain of 6,577 votes. So we got two issues. We got to turn out the people to vote, okay? And because we have more registered voters, and we got to get our percentage up from that 75% to maybe 80, because that's how we're going to beat the Dems in the big cities like Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, okay? So this is what it's all about. Now, I've talked to you about this before, and this is really important. The NRA, the Tea Party and the liberty groups in the state have been volunteering with the NRA and doing incredible work. We have been fighting the fight. The reason Trump is going to win is because of the work we're doing, not just in Ohio, but all over this country, fighting for every House, every Senate seat, and every presidential vote in 45 states, okay? But we got a problem. On Election Day, a lot of our volunteers are going to be working the polls so you can vote in person. We need volunteers to help text people who haven't voted yet to go vote on Election Day. To do that, to volunteer for that, I need you to send a text message. And I need you to just text these letters, P2P, the letter P, the number 2, the letter P, to this phone number, 703-708-4664. 703-708-4664, P2P. P2P stands for peer-to-peer. It's texting. It's really easy. If you send that text message, David Conti will text back to you. They will arrange for you to take about a half-hour training on a Zoom call, and then you'll be ready to help us send poll flushing text messages on Election Day. Okay? 703-708-4664. Text them P2P. Now, last things was, I told you about the Ohio Slate Card. You go to wethepeopleconvention.org, right on the front page, there's a red button that says vote in person, and click here to get your Slate card. It takes you to this website where you can pull down your county, and when you pull down your county, it will give you a list of everyone on your ballot in your county that we need you to vote for. You need to print those, you need to take them to the Board of Elections and hand them out. You need to copy the URL for that page. You need to send that to everyone you know who's a Trump supporter. You can text it, you can email it, you need to get it out, okay? It's showtime, folks. We got work to do. We got to get out our vote. If you do this, if you listen to me and do what I ask you to do, you're going to be a very happy camper on Election Day. You're going to be very proud, okay? So election hours have changed. Like I said, you can vote in person Monday through Friday until 6 p.m. Actually, it's till 7 p.m. And then you can vote on Saturdays. And you're even going to be able to vote on Sunday before November 3rd. That's Sunday, November 1st. So however you vote, get out and vote and get everyone else you know to vote, because this is all about turnout, okay? It's all about turnout, but you're going to be very happy on Election Day if you just act on what I've told you to do. These are the best ways to protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, and defend our nation, okay? Going to take a quick break. Going to get to some other stories. That you're listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion radio show and podcast. And my name is Tom Zawistowski.
Buckeye Firearms Association is Ohio's #1 gun rights organization, protecting the rights of Ohio's 4 million gun owners. And you can get our weekly gun rights newsletter free. Receive breaking news and urgent alerts on gun laws. Stay up to date on self-defense and shooting sports. Discover pro-gun activities and events near you. Get your free gun rights newsletter now at bfanews.org. That's bfanews.org. bfanews.org.
The Buckeye Institute was founded in 1989, and we're the longest-serving free market think tank in the state of Ohio. My goal is removing barriers to prosperity that have been put in place by government. We want for Ohio to be the freest and most prosperous state in the country.
The Buckeye Institute is a source of common sense ideas that will have an impact on the nation as well as the state of Ohio.
All right, we're going to get back to some of the election stuff later, but because the radio show is only 26 minutes and the podcast is like an hour, I'm going to have to get away from some of the election stuff and come back to that on the podcast so we can cover some of the big stories that affect you that you need to know about. So obviously the big story that's in the news is the fact that Joe Biden is basically owned by China, okay? And the Democrats have been trying, and the media have been trying to hide the story. We've known this for years, literally, because of reporters like John Solomon and Peter Schweitzer and Sarah Carter and all those guys. We've known that Hunter Biden got money from Burisma in Ukraine. We know that he got $1.5 billion from China, and everyone wants to pretend it's not true. Well, this week, a business partner of theirs came out. He's actually in prison, all right, and he came out and said, "Listen, I got these emails. I know this is true. And oh yeah, by the way, Joe Biden got money from the Chinese. And matter of fact, Joe Biden was in on this all along. So Joe Biden's been lying to you and the American people, saying, I never discussed this with my son Hunter, but the reality is the evidence is crystal clear. And so, you need to know that. You need to tell all your friends that. You need to tell anyone who's thinking about voting for Joe Biden that Joe Biden sold us out to the Chinese. And he is owned by the Chinese. And if you go to wethepeopleconvention.org, you will see a story under the articles that says the Democratic Party is owned by the Chinese. And I finally got that together, and there's links that say, here's what Joe Biden got. Here's what Barack Obama got. Here's what Hillary Clinton got. Here's what Bill Clinton got. Here's how they're funding Black Lives Matter. China owns Kamala Harris, okay? It's just real simple. And so they're trying to cover it up. So what happened was Twitter and Facebook banned the New York Post story when it first came out. And again, they think they're God. They think they control us. They have no clue. These guys who are such geniuses, they're dumber than a box of rocks. Every one of you listen to this radio show is so much smarter than these people who work at Google and Facebook because they're nerds. All they know is how to write computer code. They can't milk a cow. They can't fix your tractor, okay? And they have no damn common sense, right? So they think they control everything, and we don't follow them at all. We could care less what they say, right? But here's how stupid they are. So Twitter bans the Biden email, okay, from the New York Post, and what happens next? Well, by banning them, people heard about it, and more than double the people shared it. Twitter's tried to censor what deemed to be misinformation, right? Misinformation. It's Hunter Biden's laptop. He signed for it. We've got his signature. It's his emails and pictures, but it's misinformation. Why? No one knows, okay? But it didn't work. According to the media intelligence firm Signal Labs, shares of the Post article nearly doubled after Twitter started suppressing it. Signal found a surge of shares immediately after Twitter instituted the block, jumping from 5,500 shares every 15 minutes to 10,000 shares. There are over 325,000 shares of that story in the New York Post because, see, they thought they could stop you from knowing about this. They thought that our show doesn't exist, that talk radio doesn't exist, that Rush Limbaugh doesn't exist. These people are morons, and they're going to get what's coming to them because we're coming for them. And that's big news this week because the Trump administration and the DOJ and 11 states launched an antitrust lawsuit against Google this week. The U.S. Department of Justice and 11 states filed a federal antitrust lawsuit against Google, accusing the internet's giant of unlawful, monopolistic behavior in its search business. Basically, according to the plaintiffs, Google owns or controls about 80% of the market for search channels and accounts for 90% of all searches in the United States and 95% of all the mobile searches. Google's market power, based upon its immense size and exclusive agreements it uses allegedly to limit competition, makes it difficult for competitors to enter the search engine field and has the effect of forcing anyone who wants to conduct business online to use the company's products, right? Google is specifically accused of unlawfully maintaining monopolies in the market for general search services, search advertising, and general search advertising in the United States through anti-competitive and exclusionary practices, okay? But listen to this rebuttal from the clowns at Google. Today's lawsuit by the Department of Justice is deeply flawed, said Google. People use Google because they choose to, not because they're forced to or because they can't find alternatives. They control 95% of the search on your phone. They pay Apple $14 billion a year to make their search exclusive on your Apple phone. You're not forced to? What a bunch of liars, okay? This is just a start, folks. This is just a start. We're coming for big tech. And I just heard that the Senate is going to subpoena the tech CEOs to testify about this blocking of the New York Post story. We have an election where the guy running as the Democratic presidential candidate has been taking bribes from multiple foreign governments, including Russia and China, our two biggest enemies, and they are censoring it. That's called a crime. That's election interference. They need to be charged, okay? And they're going to have to testify, but that ain't even close to what we're doing. These people are going down, folks. They're going down. But this is how evil they are, okay? And I want you to be aware of this. This is a video from Tucker Carlson. Listen to what the Dems have in store for you, for the people listening to the show, and for me, if they win this election. If through some unbelievable theft, some amazing cheating that I don't think they're capable of, this is what they're planning.
Every single day of this year has been yet another page torn directly from a George Orwell novel. You can't believe it's real, but unfortunately it is. Some Democrats are now calling for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to try or assess Trump supporters after the election. Truth and Reconciliation Commission. This weekend, for example, former Obama advisor Robert Reich, who was the labor secretary under Bill Clinton, wrote that Truth and Reconciliation Commissions would, quote, name every official, politician, executive, and media mogul whose greed and cowardice enabled this catastrophe, end quote. Several MSNBC anchors have made the same suggestion. Chris Hayes, for example. In July, another MSNBC personality offered a preview of these commissions.
Let me take an example like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, because it's a good example because apartheid went on for a long time. But basically, people would come before that commission and admit there was a truth-telling. They would say, I did this. And that was the birth of the concept of reconciliation, because they were able to admit what they did wrong. Here in America, we have a different problem in that there are a whole bunch of people who say, I didn't cause this problem. Might have been my ancestors, or maybe I'm a recent immigrant. It's somebody else's fault. How do we convince people that it doesn't have to be their fault to be their responsibility to fix it?
South Africa is the model? Seriously, that's not a rhetorical point, by the way, or a demagogic one. Do you know anyone who lives there? Of any color? How's that country going now? Seriously. That's their model. Okay.
Yeah, right? You're responsible, even though you didn't do it. That's the way the left thinks. And they're going to have truth and reconciliation commissions, right? Yeah, over our dead bodies, okay? So what did we do? The We the People Convention sent out a press release right after that story came out on Tuesday. We did it Tuesday morning. It said, the WTPC, the We the People Convention, calls on AG Barr to appoint a new special counsel in response to the Dem calls for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Tom Zawistowski, president of the Ohio-based Tea Party-affiliated We the People Convention, today in response to the Democrat Socialist calls to create a South African-style Truth and Reconciliation Commission after this year's election to erase Trump's lies, quote, and name every official, politician, executive, and media mogul whose greed and cowardice enabled this catastrophe, quote unquote, of the Trump administration, called for the United States Attorney General William Barr to appoint a new special counsel to investigate the ongoing deep state coup attempt against President Trump, the continuous illegal interference in political elections by U.S. intelligence agencies, the cash for influence scandals involving the Clinton Foundation, the Biden family, and the Obama administration, and the massive infiltration by anti-American Marxists and statists in our federal government and military. Okay? So we put forward a press release. You can read it at wethepeopleconvention.org, and you'll see that I make some facts, and I actually suggest that Joe DeGeneva be the person that is made the special counsel. You've seen Joe DeGeneva on Fox and Newsmax and One America News and all that stuff. He knows he's a former United States attorney. He knows where the bodies are buried, and that's who we recommended. Interestingly enough, I asked you people to call Bill Barr and the White House and say, we want a special counsel. What a surprise. The next morning on the Hugh Hewitt Show, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said to Hugh Hewitt that the idea of appointing a special counsel has merit. Hugh Hewitt asked, now Chief of Staff Meadows, obviously the Attorney General works for the president. If the president wants to, he can direct Bill Barr to appoint a special counsel to look into the Biden email situation, both Bidens, and whether any laws are broken. I believe this is one of the few times in my life, said Hewitt, I believe the special counsel is necessary. Meadows answered, as you know, the FBI and the DOJ, they don't confirm whether they have an ongoing investigation or not. That being said, a special prosecutor being assigned is certainly something that has merit and is also something that has been considered. I'm asking each of you to go to justice.gov/contact us, justice.gov/contact us, or go to whitehouse.gov contacts. And I want you to call the president, and I want you to call Attorney Barr, and I want you to demand that we get a special counsel, not just to look into Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. No. We want to look into everything. We want to look into everything because we have to clean house after this election. And I'm hoping, and I've heard some rumors that President Trump is going to fire the obstructionist, the guy who's obstructing justice, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, when the election is over. I'm hearing that Trump's going to fire him. He should have never appointed him. Okay, we've talked about this on the show. But here's what. That ain't good enough. We need to fire Christopher Wray and then the top 25 people in the FBI. We need to gut this. We need to get the cancer out of our Department of Justice and the FBI and every other agency. And we'll talk more about that as the weeks come by after the election. Before we wrap up the radio show, I just want to mention one thing that we should all celebrate. In all the noise, suddenly this has just dropped off the pages, folks. But next Monday, the Senate is going to confirm Amy Coney Barrett to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we will have our real 5-4 majority because that crummy Roberts, that backstabbing, never-Trumper, Bushy Roberts will not be able to screw us like he's done so many times anymore. Amy Coney Barrett is going to get appointed, and on Monday, you need to celebrate. It's taken 50 years to get here, and it's a great achievement, and we can't wait. So we're going to wrap up the radio show. I asked you to volunteer with the NRA. I asked you to take Slate Cards outside the Board of Elections in your county. I asked you to start talking to everyone that doesn't vote absentee or in person before the election and get ready to get them to the polls on Election Day because we're going to need every one of those votes, and that's what we got to do. And I asked you to call the White House and the Attorney General to make sure that we get a special counsel appointed to just rat out all the commies and statists in our government. That's what we got to do. We're going to wrap it up. You're listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion radio show and podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I hope you'll be back again next week. The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. Okay, thanks for everyone who stayed with us through the radio program and into the podcast. We're glad you're with us. I'm going to jump back towards some election stuff now because I needed to, cover some of the stuff that was important that wasn't election related. But there's a lot of election related stuff going on. I also wanted to just reach out to you guys who've been working with Free Ohio Now to do Trump train road rallies and to do sign waves. You guys have been doing a fantastic job. There was a picture, if you're on the podcast, you can see it in the corner of the screen, there was a Biden bus going through Jefferson County, Ohio, and a bunch of Trump trucks got behind it and started dogging them and chasing them out of the county. It was awesome. You guys are awesome. I've asked Tom Hack and Kristen Hill, who run FreeOhioNow.com, to help us transition you from just doing Trump trains and sine waves, which I want you to keep doing because they're fun, but I also want you guys to help us go to the Board of Elections and hand out Slate Cards. I've also heard from my good friend Ralph Spampanato in Stark County that he's looking to organize a Trump train road rally on that Saturday before the election, the 31st of October, where the Trump train road rally is going to start outside of on the edges of the county, and they're going to do a Trump train that ends at the Board of Elections, and then they're going to get out and vote that day. They're going to go vote after the Trump train ends. I think that's a great idea. I'd like to see that happening. But I also want to say, you guys who participated in the Marietta area in Washington County, what a Trump train you guys had. 850 cars. The line of cars was like 11 miles long. You went 75 miles all around Washington County and then across the Ohio River into West Virginia, down along the Ohio River in West Virginia, across the bridge back to Marietta. It was awesome. It was an incredible show of force. It was just so powerful message saying, we're here. You can't ignore us, and we're strong, and we're powerful, and we're going to vote, and we're going to beat your butt in this election. That's what we're going to do. It was awesome, and it's happening all over the country, folks. This is a story that they just ignored, and I love it. They're telling you that that Biden's got a chance of winning Ohio. Yeah, right. Okay, and he's going to win all these other states. They're talking about him winning Florida. You didn't even see this in Florida. In Miami, where Dade County is, which is the county that has all the controversy that you have to win if you're going to win Florida, The Cuban Americans there had a Trump train road rally with 30,000 cars. Not their statement, the police statement. 30,000 cars. So there's at least 60,000 people in the cars and trucks, and there had to be another 20,000 people or 30,000 people on the sides of the roads. You know what they were fighting? They were fighting communism. They were saying, we're going to defend America because we don't want what happened in our countries of Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua to happen here. You think Joe Biden has a chance in Florida? He has no chance in Florida. 30,000 cars, okay? So lots going on with the vote. Big decision for us in Michigan. As I said earlier, Michigan had passed a law that they could have ballots come in for 14 days after the election. 14 days, okay? Why they thought that was necessary? Because of the mail and stuff. Again, remember what I said at the beginning of the show. Important part that people are missing. People are so scared of COVID that they're voting early by mail. But they're also seeing all these stories, and I'm going to tell you a couple more right now, about the mail being lost, being destroyed, not being counted, that they're mailing in their ballots immediately. There's not going to be all these ballots coming after the election. They're all going to be there before the election because people are afraid their vote won't count. So Michigan just said it's got to be in on election day, and they're going to count the vote on election day. That's a big deal. But we got screwed, and I told you just a second ago about Supreme Court Justice, who's supposed to be a Republican, but he's a rhino, Roberts, right? So we had talked about this several weeks ago. The Democrat Supreme Court of Pennsylvania had passed a law, had approved a law that basically allowed Pennsylvania to count votes for 3 days after the election. But what was just unbelievably disgusting about what they did is that they said they had to be postmarked by the election day. But then they said, if the postmark is smeared or unclear, or if the postmark isn't even there, the ballot should be counted unless you can prove they weren't mailed before election day. You know what that is? That's a license to cheat. Because what's going to happen in Pennsylvania is on election night, the Democrats in Philadelphia, where cheating in voting is literally an industry, okay? And there's been people that have gone to jail already this year who cheated in previous elections. They're known cheaters in Philadelphia, just like they are in all the Democratic big cities, right? But worse in Philadelphia. These people can now know how many votes they need on Tuesday night, and then they have until Friday to manufacture them because they don't even need a postmark. They don't even need a postmark. Now, here's the good news. Our people are fighting like heck, okay, in Pennsylvania. And they're telling me we're going to win big enough that even Philadelphia doesn't have enough votes to cheat to steal it. We'll see. But that coward, that Judge Roberts, is despicable. He should be impeached. Every judge, on the liberal judges and Roberts should be impeached because any person with any common sense says that if you can count ballots after the election that don't have a postmark, it's a license to steal, and Roberts voted to allow that. What a creep. But here's some better news out of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is going to be the state, folks. It's going to be the flaky state, okay? They're going to be late. Remember, it was 3 o'clock in the morning before they called it last time because they were trying to cheat to steal it anyway, okay? But it didn't matter. Trump didn't need Pennsylvania. He won anyway. And that's the way it's going to be here. If you go read my article about why mail-in voting won't decide this election, it won't matter. We could lose Pennsylvania and Michigan. He's still going to win. We could lose Florida and still win, okay? Trump's going to win big. But 372,000 ballot applications were thrown out in Pennsylvania because basically what's going on, more than 90% of those applications, or about 336,000, were denied because people in the primary who asked for mail-in ballots, remember in the primary, we were all scared to death of COVID, and here in Ohio, our despicable Democrat governor, Mike DeWitt, okay, nitwit, he canceled our election 24 hours before the election and then delayed it a month. Well, in Pennsylvania, their primary was in June, but on the form where you requested a ballot, an absentee ballot, it said, now permanently send me vote by mail. People didn't know that they had opted in continuously, and now they have to opt out. So 336,000 of these ballot requests were returned or were basically destroyed because the people were getting ballots whether they wanted one or not. Okay? And that's why you don't want to be changing the rules to the last minute, because it just messes everything up. But also in Philadelphia, FBI agents went to the local Local 98 union headquarters for the electricians unions because the electricians union was out stealing Trump signs. Okay? They were going into the International Brotherhood of Electoral Workers Local 98 offices in Philadelphia's Spring Garden section, and because they had been stealing Trump signs and they had been charged with crimes. This union had been charged with crimes before. Okay? It's just despicable. It's literally an industry to cheat in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. But I think we're still going to overcome that. We'll see what happens. Also, I told you about, how the Democrats are trying to force Frank LaRose, our Secretary of State, to put ballot boxes all over the place, right? Put ballot boxes all over the place. Well, yeah, I said, if you do that, what's to stop someone from burning those, throwing a match inside of those and starting it on fire, right? What's to stop that? Well, sure enough, that's what happened in California. All right, here's a story. In California, there's a mailbox that was outside of a library. Someone threw something, a match, a Molotov cocktail, something inside the mailbox, the ballot box, and started all the ballots on fire. They were all burned to a char, and they don't know whose ballots they were because they were burned to a char. Right? That's what the left will do to you. That's what they'll do to you. They'll cheat. And that's why you don't want ballot boxes all over the place. And that's why we really don't want all this early voting. You should vote on Election Day. I'm going to vote on Election Day. Okay? Everyone should have to vote on Election Day. It's not just a right to vote. It's a privilege. And if you won't even get in your car and go vote, you don't deserve to vote. Okay? Unless you are really physically handicapped. Can't do it. Small percentage of people. Or you're in the military serving overseas. Got it. What we're doing now is insane. But we're going to overcome it. It's not going to beat us. Okay? We're going to take another quick break and we'll be back. You're listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion radio show and podcast. And my name is Tom Zawistowski.
This is Jordan Sekula with the American Center for Law and Justice. At the ACLJ, we are committed to fighting the deep state and protecting freedom, the right to life, religious liberty, and fighting for the Constitution. The ACLJ has experienced tremendous success in litigating cases at all levels of the judiciary, from the federal district court level to the Supreme Court of the United States. We have offices in Washington, D.C., Jerusalem, and all around the world. You can find out more about the ACLJ and join us by visiting aclj.org.
Did you know that the Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio is the largest statewide life group in the state? Are you tired of the compromised approach to pro-life legislation that has been the status quo for far too long? Since 2017, the efforts of the Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio has changed that approach, closing loopholes and making pro-life laws enforceable. Visit rtlaohio.org or call 440-668-4049 for details.
All right, we're back for our final segment, and this topic really is going to be pretty much about COVID madness. Okay, and there's two studies that came out that says there's a major drop in COVID-19 death rates, and basically these studies, one of them was done, let's see here. The first study was done for the Journal of Hospice and Medicine, found the mortality rates among 5,000 hospitalized patients in NYU Langone Health System in New York City dropped by 18% between March 1st and June 20th. At the beginning of the study, admitted patients had a staggering 25.6% chance of dying. At the end, the number was at 7.6%, and that went across all age groups, okay? So it's a matter of they start figuring out how to treat this, right? Then the second study was in the United Kingdom. Between the beginning of the pandemic and late June, mortality rates among hospitalized patients dropped by close to 20 percentage points. So we're learning how to treat this better, and that's why they keep making a big deal about cases. But the deaths have stayed the same, okay? And they're actually declining because we're getting better at treating it, all right? We're getting better at treating it. But nonetheless, everybody wants to talk vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. And our crazy governor is never going to let us demask, never going to let us get back to our lives until there's a bloody vaccine. Now, you and I'm not taking no vaccine. I don't take the flu vaccine. God gave me an immune system. It works really well. I don't need your vaccine, okay? And, they're going to try to push this stuff. But President Trump came out this past week and announced a deal with CVS and Walgreens to administer the vaccine. Here's what he had to say.
Today, I'm thrilled to announce that we have just finalized a partnership with CVS and Walgreens, two places you know pretty well, I guess, to immediately deliver the vaccine directly to nursing homes at no cost to our seniors. No cost. Right? No cost.
So I thought that was a good move. They're getting prepared so that when there is a vaccine, they've got a way to administer it to seniors. Now, I just said I'm not going to take it. I don't think vaccines are a good idea. But so many of our fellow citizens, folks, which is evidenced by the massive, absentee voting. In my polling, I've asked people, do you think Mike DeWine has done a good job? 70% of people think Mike DeWine's done a good job. You know why? Not because Mike DeWine's done a good job, but because they don't listen to this radio show. They don't follow the news that you follow. They haven't heard Dr. Scott Atlas. They've only heard Mike DeWine scare them to death. So they don't blame them. Don't say, how can they be so stupid? They're not stupid. They're ill-informed. They're being lied to. But the problem is we can't change that because we don't have the voice to change it. So the only way out of the box, the only way for us to get our lives back is, sir, when there is a vaccine, that we say, if you want it, please take it. Because then I'm not responsible for you. If you're afraid of dying, take the vaccine. Then I can't infect you, right? And I don't have to wear a mask and I don't have to social distance because I'm not afraid for me. So take the vaccine if you want. Now, a lot of you are saying to me, we shouldn't do that. It's immoral. That, it could hurt them. There was a person that died. And so this week, there was a study that came out. It's a actual statement by the Ohio Health Director, and they are actually planning, okay? They are actually talking about mandatory vaccination procedures or requirements, okay? Now, again, that we don't know what that means, and this was a draft that came out. But the bottom line is that there's going to be a real heavy hand by government to try to force you to take a vaccine. Now, by law, they can't do that to adults. They can do it to kids, and they do it to kids. You can't send your kids to school unless they take the polio vaccine and all these other vaccines, okay? And that's been fought in the courts. But for adults, there is no law that says they can make you take a vaccine. But you know what they're going to do? They're going to do what Mike DeWine has done with his illegal emergency shutdown orders. Because he has no authority. There is no legal authority. We've won every court case. Every court case says you can't shut down my business. You can't stop us from operating. You can't make us, be at 50% capacity. You can't make us do it because there's no authority behind the law for DeWine to do that. You can't make healthy people stay in their homes. That's what he did. So what did he do? He forced businesses under the threat of losing their business licenses to impose his illegal orders on you. Now, how that is legal, I don't know. I've tried to get lawyers engaged with that. I've tried to get businesses engaged with that. Because your business license doesn't say you have a license to practice medicine, does it? So why should you be responsible for the health of your employees? They're responsible for their health. Why should you have to take their temperature and write it down in a book and send them home if you think they're not feeling well? Why should you be responsible for the people who are coming to your restaurant or to your car wash or to your auto parts store or to your hair salon? Why should you be responsible for that? You shouldn't be. Your license shouldn't be threatened because of that. And we're going to have to take action when this is all over to take that power away from madmen like Mike DeWine. Because this is extortion. If I wasn't concerned about those small business people, I would never wear a mask. I almost never wear a mask. The only time I put on a mask is because if I go to a restaurant and they've told me, I've talked to someone just yesterday. She said one of my waitresses didn't have her mask all the way on. Someone called the health department. They called me and threatened me. Okay? If they did not have to enforce the governor's illegal mandates, I would never wear a mask. That's what they're going to do with vaccines. They're going to tell you that if you don't have your little card that says I've been vaccinated, well, you won't be able to get a driver's license, or you won't be able to do this or that, right? You won't be able to go to concerts maybe. It's extortion. It's not America. It's not individual freedom and liberty. It's socialism. It's Marxism. That's what we're fighting. What are you going to do? Are you going to be there to fight? Or are you going to make them coerce you, extort you into giving up your liberty to take a vaccine that might kill you? And oh yeah, by the way, one of the patients who volunteered to test the vaccine did die this week, right? Because these vaccines, they have no idea what's in them. That's what's coming our way, okay? So I just want to spell it out for you. That's what's coming our way. And you know, like I said, I hope Trump gets a vaccine, and I hope that they say, if you want it, take it, because then you have no reason to get in my face because I can't infect you. You're worried? Take the damn vaccine. If you're stupid enough to do it, be my guest. That's my attitude. All right, let's finish with some better stories, okay? I talked earlier about Joe Biden being owned by the Chinese, right? Well, you know, I've told you, we're already fighting World War III. We didn't know it for a long time. Donald Trump has made it clear. This whole COVID thing was biological warfare, okay? The Chinese have been attacking us forever. They're stealing our intellectual property. They're interfering in our election, all this stuff. I'm glad to announce to you that 4 nations, Australia has joined the U.S., India, and Japan in a quad naval war game to signal China that we are not going to just let China rule the South China Sea. That's what China is trying to do. They're trying to expand their power of influence into the busiest commercial waterway on the planet, the South China Sea. And the U.S. has been fighting back and trying to stop them. It's great to see Australia and Japan and now India, who just recently had a land battle with China. Understand, if we don't up our game, if we don't push back on the Chinese, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep pushing. Their goal is to take over control of the world by 2050. That's their goal, okay? Go look it up. And they can't do that if we stand up to them and we hurt them. Donald Trump is the biggest threat to China there is. That's why they're working with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all the rest of the Democrats to try to steal this election. We're not going to let them, let me tell you. All right? Final story that I'm excited about. You won't hear anything about this, but it's important. Thursday, President Trump signed an executive order that is aimed to rein in the bureaucracy's role in policymaking. President Donald Trump signed an executive order Wednesday aimed at making federal bureaucrats engaged in policymaking more accountable. The order is intended to address what Trump administration officials say is a concern about the growth of federal bureaucracy and about an increasing willingness by Congress to delegate policymaking authority to executive branch agencies. Quote unquote, President Trump is delivering on his promise to make Washington accountable again to the citizens it's meant to serve. Russ Vought, director of the Office of Management and Budget, told the Daily Signal in a statement, this much needed reform will increase accountability in essential policymaking positions within the government. Trump's executive order creates a new category of federal employees involved in policymaking called Schedule F, for the personnel and agencies that write federal rules and regulations. The federal government has political appointees who serve at the pleasure of the president or agency heads, as well as career employees who cannot be removed without a lengthy civil service process. The goal of this executive order is to ensure that federal employees responsible for making policy decisions are held accountable. The executive order will also make it easier for agency heads to address poor performance poor performance by policymaking employees. That's intended to address the long-standing complaint, even among federal employees, that poorly performing federal workers aren't held accountable. Folks, this is what Donald Trump means. It's not about a man. It's about a movement to take our country and restore it, its founding principles. The left has spent 100 years since Woodrow Wilson turning it on its head. Before Woodrow Wilson in 1920 or whatever it was, 18, the federal government did not have a big role in your life. There was no federal income tax. There were none of these big federal agencies. Your state, federalism, is what ruled your life. And they pretty much left you alone. But Woodrow Wilson and the regressives, who call themselves progressives, said, oh, no, the best and the brightest need to be in charge, and we're going to create all these agencies and bureaucracy to rule your life. And from that point forward, we kept giving it up. So your elected officials, whether it's in the Ohio House and Senate or in the federal, U.S. House and U.S. Senate, have given away their authority to the executive branch. And now the executive branch is given away to the Supreme Court. And that's what Obama did. We don't need no stinking laws. We'll just decide in the Supreme Court whatever we want. And that's why Joe Biden promises to pack the Supreme Court. Because in Venezuela and Nicaragua and Cuba, that's what they do. The court becomes the only thing that matters. They strike down everything that the House and the Senate and the executive do, and you have tyranny. That's what Trump is fighting. This executive order, you'll never hear about it, but on this show, is a major step forward. We have to have a purge in our country of all the communists, Marxists, and socialists, and statists. Everyone who does not believe in individual liberty and freedom must be driven out of our government, our military, our educational institutions, and our corporations. They are a cancer. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. And he started with, when he started saying, we're not going to teach the racial, the critical race theory nonsense and the BLM stuff to our government workers, to our military. We're not going to teach the 1619 Project and the BLM stuff in our schools. We're not going to have corporations that have government contracts tell their employees that if you're white, you're inherently racist. This is how we go on offense. This is what this election is about. And when this election is over, my friends, I know you're tired. I know you've worked hard, but we are not going to sleep. We are going to rise up in the most powerful force in the history of man. And we are going to push for special counsels to put Christopher Wray and Jim Comey and Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in prison. We're going to push for a complete turnover of our government and our judicial systems and our legal systems. We're going to restore equal rights under the law, because without it, we're not a nation at all. That's what you and I are fighting for, and the battle starts with this election. It doesn't end. We're going to have 4 years to change this country like it hasn't changed since Abraham Lincoln. We can do it. We must do it. We will do it. And together, we're going to do it. Not me, not Donald Trump. You, us, we, the people are going to do it. All right, going to wrap up the show. Again, I thank you for watching. I thank you for telling other people about it. Nowhere near enough people see this podcast. Yeah, please tell people about it. Please share it. And then send your info and comments to info@wethepeopleconvention.org. I use your stuff. This show is your show. I just produce it and perform it. Okay? That's why we're here. Send your stuff, and we'll be back next week. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion radio show and podcast. And my name is Tom Zawistowski, and we'll see you next week.